If it is half duplex, both the parties are able to send and receive but not at simultaneously. Network layer is going to receive the data from the upper layer. Which is the upper layer here? There is nothing but the transport layer. Each system will have unique ID called IP address. By using IP address, I am going to identify the hardware address. Hello friends, a warm welcome to my new session on Introduction to Computer Network. I am your Revati ma'am, faculty from the Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram, First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. So dear student, in my last class, I started with OSI reference model, and this reference model provides 7 layers, and each layers are responsible for performing some specific kind of task. Now, which are the layers we have discussed? That is application layer, presentation layer, session layer, transport layer, network layer, data link layer, and last one is physical layer. Okay, fine. How many layers? First, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. And if I consider first 3 layers are software layers, and if I consider last 3, these last 3 layers are hardware layer, and transport layer is nothing but the core or heart of OSI reference model. And if I consider sender side, the sender side is going to start from the application. In the sense, sender is going to use the application layer. Then presentation layer, session layer, transport layer, network layer, data link layer and physical layer. And if I consider receiver, receiver is going to start from the physical layer, then data link layer, network layer, transport layer, session layer, presentation layer and application layer. Now, in my today's class, I am going to deal with the TCP bar IP reference model. So, dear student, it's a protocol. So, what is protocol? It's nothing but this set of rules used to govern the media. In the sense, it is just an agreement between two parties. So, here TCP bar IP is nothing but a protocol. But whereas if I consider OSI reference model, it's a model, and TCP bar IP, it is just a protocol. Now let me to start my session with the topic TCP bar IP model. So what is the meaning of TCP bar IP? So what TCP bar IP stands for? That is Transmission Control Protocol and Internet Protocol. It is a protocol and it is developed prior to the OSI reference model. That is nothing but the open system interconnection. And if I consider OSI reference model, we are going to have 7 layers. And if I consider TCP bar IP, then we are going to have only 4 layers. In the sense, all the 7 layers are clubbed together to form 4 different layers. So, if I consider application layer of TCP bar IP, this is responsible for the operations of OSI reference model, that is application layer, presentation layer and session layer. And the transport layer of TCP bar IP is similar to transport layer of OSI reference model. Then network layer is nothing but the network layer of OSI reference model. And if I consider link layer, this link layer of TCP bar IP is combining the functionalities or layers of OSI reference model, that is physical layer and data link layer. So dear student, if I consider TCP bar IP, I have only 4 layers, but if I consider my first layer, it is going to perform the functionalities of OSI reference model. That's nothing but it's going to include 3 layers of OSI reference model, and they are application layer, presentation layer and session layer. And if I consider TCP bar IP's second layer, that is transport layer, that is exactly equal to the transport layer of OSI reference model. And if I consider network layer of TCP bar IP, then it is exactly similar to the network layer of OSI reference model. And if I consider link layer of TCP bar IP, then it clubs or it combines the 2 layers of OSI reference model, that is physical layer and data link layer. Now dear student, this is the 4 layers of TCP bar IP. So application layer is also called by the name process layer, and host to host layer is nothing but the transport layer, and internet layer is nothing but the network layer, and network access or link layer. So these are the 4 layers of TCP bar IP. And if I consider first layer of TCP bar IP, then it is equal to application layer, presentation layer and session layer of an OSI reference model. And transport layer is exactly equal to transport layer of an OSI reference model, and internet layer is exactly same as network layer of an OSI reference model, whereas network access layer, it includes 2 layers, that is data link layer and physical layer together. Now dear student, let me to explain the layers one by one. So dear student, the beginning I am going to have the network access layer. So dear student, this layer combines the 2 layers of an OSI reference model, that is physical layer and data link layer. And if I consider physical layer, what are the functionalities of physical layer? That is line configuration and data transmission. So what is line configuration? In the sense how we are going to connect to system, either wired or wireless. And if I consider data transmission, how I'm going to send the data from one place to another or from one node to another. It may be simplex, half duplex and full duplex. If it is simplex, only one way, and if it is full duplex, then 2 parties can able to communicate simultaneously, and if it is half duplex, both the parties are able to send and receive but not at simultaneously. Along with that, it's also responsible for performing the jobs like flow control, data control and framing. So what is framing here? If I consider data in computer network, we cannot able to transfer whole data as it is. So that data is broken into smaller pieces, and smaller pieces are known as frames in network access. So a network layer is the lowest layer. So which is the lowest layer of TCP bar IP model, that is network layer, and it combines the two layers of OSI reference model, that is physical layer and data link layer. It defines how the data should be sent physically. In the sense what? It is mainly related to line configuration, in the sense how the two systems are connected each other and how we are going to send the data from one node to another. And the another main responsibility for the network layer is to transmission of data between two devices. How we are going to send the data? That is either simplex, full duplex or half duplex transmission mode. Along with that, it's also responsible for carried out by the layer is encapsulating IP datagram into frames. So dear student, if I consider TCP bar IP, here data are treated as datagram. Now the job of the network access layer is to encapsulate IP datagram into frames. That is the main job of network access layer. And some of the protocols supported by the network access layers are token ring, FDDI or X.25 and frame relay. These are the some of the protocols supported by the network access layer. And if I consider internet layer, so this internet layer is nothing but the network layer of an OSI reference model. So dear student, if I consider network layer, the data are treated as packet. So the data are treated as packet. Now the job of the internet layer is to perform addressing, then routing and packetizing. So what is addressing? The job of the internet layer is to provide the address. In the sense, when we get the data, for each data we are going to add the header. Then what about routing? So dear student, if I consider network, I have n number of systems and I have n number of routes, and I want to select the best route, and I'm going to have plenty of algorithms to select the best route. So here routing also one of the important functions of internet layer. Along with that, it is also responsible for packetizing. So dear student, what is the job of network access layer? That is, it is responsible for encapsulating IP address or IP packet into frames. Now, the job of the internet layer, in the sense it's going to get the segment. So segment in the sense what? Data are called segment in transport layer. So network layer is going to receive the data from the upper layer. Which is the upper layer here? There is nothing but the transport layer, and convert that segment into packet. So that is itself known as IP datagram or IP packet. So an internet layer is the second layer of TCP bar IP model, and this is also known by the name network layer, and the main responsibility of this layer is to send the packet. So dear student, in internet layer we are going to have the packet. Now the job of the internet layer is to send the packet from any network, and they arrive at the destination irrespective of the route they take. So the main job of internet layer is to forward the packet, and same packet is going to reach the destination based on the routing. So the routing and packetizing is the main job of the internet layer or the main responsibility of the internet layer. So these are the some of the protocols we are going to have in internet layer. So dear student, as I discussed, TCP bar IP is nothing but a protocol. So what is protocol? It's nothing but the rules used to govern the communication media. Now, see, suppose if I want to make an agreement between two devices, then I must have the rules. These are the certain rules and this comes in our internet protocol or internet layer. One is IP. So what is IP? That is internet protocol. It is responsible for delivering packet from source host to the destination host by looking at the IP address in the packet header. So dear student, think that I have the data 1010. Now what I want to do, I want to add the IP address of the sender and IP address of the receiver. So this is sender IP address and this is receiver IP address. Now the job of the IP, that is internet protocol, is to deliver the packet to the destination, because in the message we are going to append the destination address. Now the job of the IP is to deliver the packet to particular or intended receiver, and this IP provides two kind of IP, that is IPv4 and IPv6. These are the two IP versions. And if I consider IPv4, that is Internet Protocol version 4, the most commonly used IP version IPv4, and this IPv6 is reserved for future use. Now I'm going to have another protocol, that is ICMP. So, Internet Control Message Protocol. So, what is ICMP? That is Internet Control Message Protocol. It is encapsulated within datagrams. So, where we are going to encapsulate ICMP, that is within the IP datagrams, and it's also responsible for providing host with information about network problem. So when I attach ICMP in my datagram, then it's going to give the information about network problems. Then I'm going to have the ARP, that is Address Resolution Protocol. So dear student, if I consider any device or any node, I have two kind of address. One is physical address and another one is logical address. Now, its job is to find the hardware address of a host from a known IP address. So dear student, think that I have 4 systems and all these systems are connected via the internet or network. Now, the job of the ARP is to identify the IP. Because I have the IP, by using IP, I want to identify the hardware address, because each system will have unique ID called IP address. By using IP address, I'm going to identify the hardware address. So, its job is to find the hardware address of a host from the known IP address. So, now I want to identify the receiver address. How I am going to identify? That is by using hardware address. So, its job is to find the hardware address. Each system have its own hardware address. Now, how I am going to extract the hardware address? That is based on IP address, and that is the job of the ARP, that is address resolution protocol. Then I'm going to have the host to host layer. So what is host to host layer? The functionality of host to host layer is same as the transport layer. So the functionalities of host to host layer is same as the functionalities of the transport layer, and this is the core of the TCP bar IP. It is responsible for end-to-end connection. If I required any dedicated point-to-point connection, then I must have the transport layer. And it is also responsible for error-free delivery of the data. So dear student, when I consider computer network, okay, the data are traveled through the network and the data may get corrupted due to the noise or due to the traffic. Now, the job of the host to host layer is to provide error-free data, that is delivery of data. This transport layer is also responsible for the reliability flow control. So what is reliability? So dear student, if I consider transport layer, it provides two kind of connection. One is TCP, that is transmission control protocol, and UDP. So what is UDP? That is user datagram protocol. Now if I consider host to host layer, then it is responsible for providing reliable data communication and flow control. So dear student, if I consider flow control, what's the meaning of flow control? Okay, you consider our traffic. If we don't have any traffic rule, then is it possible to control the vehicles? No, because the roads are free and everyone are going to use the road according to their wish, and we don't have any traffic control mechanism. Now, if I want to have the efficient data flow, then I must have the flow control that can be done by using acknowledgement as well as sliding window, that is by using wait and forward mechanism or by using sliding window, and correction of data which is being sent over the network. So this is also responsible for error correction and error detection. Now, dear student, these are the protocols supported by the transport layer or host to host layer. So which are the two protocols? That is transmission control protocol and UDP, that is user datagram protocol. As the name itself indicates, that transmission control, in the sense what? There is a connection between two nodes or two parties. So it is connection oriented and it provides acknowledgement. For example, think that I have A and I have B. Now, A is going to send some data to B. In return, B is going to send the acknowledgement to A that B received the data and ready to receive the next data. Once A receives the acknowledgement, now A is going to send the data to B. In return, B is going to send the data, that is acknowledgement, to A. So it is reliable and error-free communication, and it performs sequencing and segmentation of data. So dear student, in transport layer, the data are called segment. Now the job of the transport layer or host to host layer is to perform the segmentation as well as sequencing. So sequencing in the sense what? Giving unique number to segment and align the segment sequentially. And it also has acknowledgement feature. So these are the features of transmission control protocol. So it is reliable. And if I consider UDP, that is user datagram protocol, it is connectionless. So what kind of connection? It is connectionless in the sense what? There is no physical connection. And how the nodes are going to communicate? That is through the air. Okay, fine. Now, it is unreliable. Why it is unreliable? Because here we don't have acknowledgement mechanism. In the sense, I have A and I have B. Now A is going to send the data to B and A is not going to wait for the acknowledgement from the B. Next, A is going to send the data to B. Once again, A is not going to wait for the acknowledgement from B. And this sequence is going to continue. Even though if the data or packet or segment is not received by the B, but still continuously is going to send the data. So it is unreliable. Here we don't have any acknowledgement. So these are the features of user datagram, and it uses broadcast mechanism. Broadcast in the sense what? Send the packet, and one who active in the network, they can able to access the packet or they can able to access the data. Now I have the application layer. So this is the top layer of TCP bar IP, and it combines three layers of OSI reference model. And which are the three layers? Application layer, presentation layer and session layer. And this application layer is responsible for compression, translation. So what is compression? If the data size is large and I cannot able to send the large data on the network. So what I want to do? I want to minimize the size, or I want to decrease the size of the data, and that is known as compression. And translation. What is translation? There are certain time I want to translate the data from one form to another. Along with that, it also provides the platform to the user so that user can able to send the data as well as receive the data. This layer allows the user to interact with the application. For example, if I want to access any information from the www, then I must have some way. For that, I'm going to have the search engine. So browser is the best example. So it provides, or it allows the user to send the data and receive the data. So this layer allows the user to interact with the applications. Now, when one application layer protocol wants to communicate with another application layer, it forwards the data to the transport layer. So dear student, think that I'm going to send mail to my friend. So from where I'm going to send? From the application layer. Then after application layer, the data must cross across the transport layer. After that, internet layer, then network access control layer. This layer performs the functions of top three layers. In the sense, I'm going to club all the functionalities of top three layers of OSI reference model, that is application layer, presentation layer and session layer. And this is also responsible for providing node to node, that is point to point or end to end communication. And this application layer uses some of the protocols like HTTP, FTP, TFTP, Telnet, SSH, SMTP, HTTP. So these are the some of the protocols supported by the application layer, and let me to discuss the protocols of this layer. So what is HTTP? That is Hypertext Transfer Protocol. This protocol allows the user to access the data over the World Wide Web. For example, suppose if I want to search any data and I want to retrieve the information which is stored in the www, then I must have the HTTP. So where I'm going to write HTTP in my URL. So what is URL? That is nothing but the Uniform Resource Locator. And in my URL, I'm going to write HTTP : and I'm going to write the remaining address. Now, if I want to access any video or audio files, even text files, then I must include HTTP. Now, dear student, I have SNMP. So that is Simple Network Management Protocol, and it is responsible for managing the devices which is on the internet by using TCP/IP protocol. Then I'm going to have Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, that is SMTP. So dear student, if I want to send any mail to my friends or colleagues, what I will do? Either I'm going to use Yahoo, Rediff or Gmail. Now, these mails are going to use SMTP, that is Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. Now, I have the domain name system. So, what is domain name system? That's nothing but the DNS, domain name system. Think that, dear student, I have 10 system and I'm going to give unique address or unique ID to all the system, and it is very difficult to remember the number of the system. So what I'm going to do? I'm going to give the specific name to the system. So giving name to the system is known as domain name system. An IP address is used to identify the connection of a host to the internet uniquely. But what the peoples are going to prefer, because it's very difficult to remember the number, because IP addresses are represented in the form of dotted decimal numbers. Now it is very difficult to remember the IP address. So what they are going to do? They are going to give the name to individual system, and that is known as domain name system. So people prefer to use the names instead of addresses. Therefore, the system that maps the name to the address. So, here I require DNS to map the IP address with the names. For that, I require DNS. Now, I have the telnet. So, what is telnet? Terminal network, to establish communication between two terminals. If two terminals want to communicate each other, then I must have the telnet. It establishes the connection between local computer to remote computer. So, think that I have the local computer and I must use the remote computer which is so far away. Now, I want to establish the connection between local computer and remote computer. Then I must have the telnet. And the last one is File Transfer Protocol, FTP. So, dear student, if I want to send any file, text file or any other file, then I must have the protocol that is known as File Transfer Protocol. FTP is a standard internet protocol used to transfer the text files or data to one system to another. So it's mainly used to transfer the files from one node or one system to another. So these are the some of the protocols supported by the application layer of TCP bar IP. Now the last topic of the day, that is difference. So difference between TCP bar IP and OSI reference model. So what is the first difference? That is in terms of abbreviation. So TCP refers to Transmission Control Protocol and Internet Protocol. And what about OSI? That is Open System Interconnection. So dear student, if I consider TCP, it supports or it provides 4 layers. And if I consider OSI, that provides 7 layers. And if I consider TCP bar IP, it is more reliable. And if I consider OSI reference model, then it is less reliable. So reliable in the sense what? It is very easy to fix the error. It's very easy to troubleshoot. So if I go with TCP bar IP, then it is very easy to find out where the errors and what kind of errors, that is error correction, error detection, flow control and so on. And if I go with OSI reference model, then it is less reliable. And if I consider TCP bar IP, it does not have any strict boundary. But if I consider OSI reference model, it have its own restriction. And if I consider TCP bar IP, it uses horizontal approach, and OSI reference model that uses vertical approach. Now, if I use TCP bar IP, it uses session layer, presentation layer, application layer in one single layer, that is application layer. And if I consider OSI reference model, I have different, that is separate application layer, presentation layer and session layer. If I consider TCP, it is developed as protocol. So protocol is what? It's nothing but the rule, or it's nothing but the agreement between two parties, and it is developed as model. If I consider OSI, it is just a model. And transport layer in TCP bar IP does not provide assurance delivery of packet. So which protocol we use in transport layer of TCP bar IP, that is UDP. So UDP in the sense what? It does not provide any acknowledgement. If it does not provide any acknowledgement, then it is understood that it does not provide assurance delivery of packet. And if I consider OSI reference model, here we use TCP protocol. So what is the use of TCP protocol? Each time when receiver receives the data, receiver is going to send the acknowledgement to the sender. Now, the another difference, TCP bar IP model network layer only provides connectionless service. So in TCP, we have only connectionless. So what is connectionless? That is nothing but we use broadcast mechanism, in the sense we don't have any physical connection between two entities or two parties. Instead of that, we are having connectionless. That's nothing but the air. So there is no physical connection here. So it is connectionless service. But if I consider OSI, it provides connection oriented as well as connectionless, in the sense what? It's going to provide the physical connection between two entities, and it's also going to use the medium air. Now, protocol cannot be replaced easily. So we have predefined set of protocols and I want to make only those protocols in TCP bar IP. In the sense, I'm not able to change the protocol. But if I consider OSI reference model, protocols are better covered and easy to replace with the changes in the technology. So according to my need, according to my wish, I can able to make the modification in my protocol. So in OSI reference model, I can able to make the modification according to my need or according to my requirement. But if I consider TCP, I am not able to change the protocol. So these are some of the difference between TCP bar IP and OSI reference model. So dear student, please make a note here. From the examination point of view, OSI reference model is very important question, and TCP bar IP is also very important question, and the difference between TCP bar IP and OSI reference model is also very important topic. Anyway, dear student, let's meet in the next session with the second chapter, that is physical layer. So what is physical layer and what are the different types of physical layer? We have all those things we are going to study under chapter 2. Anyway, dear student, let's meet in the next session, that is physical layer. Until that, keep watching and keep learning. Thank you.